Hi friends, I hope you all are doing great. It's me, Nikki, here to share with you some tips on organizing your pots and pans, so let's get started. Okay friends, so let's talk pots and pans, and I want to not really only share with you how I organize my pots and pans, but share with you tips that will help you organize your cabinet or drawer or whatever system that you use. So in my system here, this is not the original way that my cabinet was organized when we moved in the house. This is a system that we bought and put in here. I will say it's a little bit of an investment, but it was so well worth it. I think it ran like $200, but for this type of cabinet, it is so important to be able to efficiently get to my pots and pans, so it is so worth the investment. And it's the Rev unit, and I'll link it below if you're interested. But what it allows me to do is keep all of my lids up top and keep all of my pots and pans down below, and it makes it easy for me to get whatever I need when it's time to cook. But the first tip that I want to share with you for all of us is before we do anything as far as organization with our pots and pans, you first want to make sure that you're using the right area. So whether you have a drawer or a cabinet or whatever the case may be, you want to make sure that you are putting your pots and pans in the location that makes it easy for you when you're going to cook. As you can see, I have all of my pans here right there by the stove, because for me, realistically, when I go to cook, this is where I'm coming to, because I'm first coming to get my pot to put it on the stove. So I don't want to go to the other side of the kitchen to get a pot. So it just wouldn't make sense to have this cabinet on the other side of the kitchen. So that's the first tip, is just to make sure your location is really convenient for you for your pots and pans. Now, another tip, friends, is if you have a pots and pans cabinet that is stressing you out, it feels cluttered, the first thing you want to do is just rip everything out. Just rip it all out, because you will be surprised what you actually have in that drawer or that cabinet. And why this is important is because out of all the cabinets in our kitchen, your pots and pans are one of the most bulkiest products outside of appliances. And so you really want to make sure that you're only holding on to those things that you utilize and that you need and that you desire for cooking in your kitchen. So a lot of times when I'm helping people in their homes and we get into those pots and pans, there's so many pots and pans that they didn't know they had, they never use, and it really was taking up valuable real estate and, more importantly, frustrating them. So by really removing all the things that you don't use, or you may have, 5 frying pans and you don't need, 5 skillets, and so really having what you need first and determine that, because then that's when you need to then go into how do you want to organize. My system here is easy. I'm able to lift my pan out, put it back easily. It just makes it so simple. So I'm really happy that we really did do this, and we pulled out the drawer. We had a drawer in here before, and we pulled it out. But now let's get away from how I have mine organized, and let's just talk about in general all of us, okay? So the next tip is really maximizing space. So a lot of times you'll have a cabinet and you may have a full cabinet, bottom shelf, top shelf, or you may have a bottom shelf and a half of a top shelf. Well, what you want to do is you want to think about making it simple so that you can open the cabinet, reach in, pull out. So for my friends that have that bottom cabinet and a half shelf, what you can do is take all of your smaller to medium to large saucepans, and you don't want to stack them inside of each other, because that really, if you can help it and not do that, that really saves you frustration. If you have no choice, I would not stack more than 2, because when you start stacking 3 and 4 and 5, it just becomes a chore to get to your things when it's time to cook. So if you have that half shelf, I would take all of my saucepans, the smaller ones, and I would line them up from small to large with the handles facing out, and I would line them in a line on that shelf. That takes care of all of the smaller pans. It makes it easy for you to get to, and definitely put the lids on each one, because that takes care of the lids for the saucepans. And when you need it, you have the whole family together. You don't have to go on a search mission to find the lid to go with the pot. It just makes life so much easier. So again, this is for my friends with that cabinet with the bottom shelf and a half top shelf. Then you have that bottom shelf where you can then put all of the larger stock pots and the frying pans, and I'll show you how to arrange those in a second. But you've taken care of those essential saucepans on that half shelf. And if you have 2 full shelves, even better, because then you can use the same concept, but then you also have more space to put additional pots and pans that you have. So you really can, it'll be easier for you if you have 2 of the full shelves. Now say we have that bottom shelf, you know, you put the 3 saucepans on the top. On the bottom, that's where you're putting your frying pans. Again, go back to that system of only no more than 2. You're not going to stack more than 2. And I would even put kind of pan dividers in between to protect each one. And then I would get a hanger for your door so that you can put the lids on the door, because you really want to not stack your lids, because that can become a disaster. Now, if you have that drawer and you have the luxury of a big, beautiful drawer for your pots and pans, I would not stack also. I would make sure that I put the pot with the lid, and then I would sit them all in the drawer face down. So when it's time to cook, I'm just reaching down and grabbing what I need. Now, one thing about this is arrangement, because if you don't arrange it properly, you're not going to have the space to do that. So you see I have them side by side here. This is not the best arrangement because I'm not really maximizing that space. It's going to be hard to do that. So what you want to do is you always want to alternate, because when you alternate your pots and pans, you're giving the handles the opportunity not to take up much space, and you're having like puzzle pieces, and you're maximizing that space. So you see how I have one facing one way, one facing the other way, and it's really allowing me to maximize that space. And another tip, friend, is when you are organizing your pots and pans in that location that is best for you, think about only doing everyday use, like those pots and pans that you use on a regular basis. You will notice I don't have my roasting pans or my big stock pans in this cabinet, because I only use those maybe once, twice a year during holidays. They're not my everydays, and I'll show you in a separate video how I store those. But when you're storing your pots and pans, think about having the cabinet with your essentials, the things that you are grabbing all of the time, because then you can just minimize that. And then storing the big stock pots and the roasters in a separate space. A great space for those is over the stove. A lot of times we have that cabinet above the refrigerator or above the stove, and a lot of times when I'm helping people organize in their home, they rarely put things in these cabinets because they think, oh, it's difficult to get to, or they just don't utilize it, when that is the perfect space for those pots and pans that you only use once or twice a year. So instead of having them grouped with all of the ones you use every day and making you frustrated because you're having to fight around everything, it's not enough space, you can really free up some space by removing the things that are not everyday use, giving them their own home in those cabinets that are not prime real estate, and then beautifully organizing your pots and pans in the space that is commonly used every day. And so, friends, we all have different homes, whether it's an apartment or a large home, medium-sized home. We have the same goal. You know, we want to open our pots and pans cabinet or drawer, and it'd be easy to get to our pots and pans. We can see what we have, and it's not an overwhelming process. And how you do that is really just to make it so that when you look into that space, you can see your inventory and easily grab it. So, friends, if you're not subscribed to my channel, definitely click that subscribe button along with the bell to receive notifications every time I post a video. I hope I could have shared some things that were helpful to you today. Thank you for coming by. I hope you have a beautiful day. I will see you at the next video. And this is Nikki saying goodbye.